All right, welcome, episode 8 of the Small Chunk Campers podcast. I am so pumped to be here today and to have you all listening out there, wherever you're at. I just hope you're getting into some adventures right now, hopefully doing something cool or preparing for an adventure. You know, a lot of time spent is just preparing, and when we finally get to go, I mean, that's kind of the cherry on top. So if you're just preparing right now or looking forward to some sort of adventure in the future, then I'm stoked for you. And if you're currently on an adventure, I am stoked for you as well. But yes, thanks so much for joining me. Episode 8. Can't believe we're already here. And in today's show, I just want to touch on a few things, and then we have a very special guest that I'm excited to introduce in the second part of this podcast. And I think, part of this podcast is to try and talk to some of these camper manufacturers, camper companies, and just kind of see what differentiates them. There's a lot of campers right now in the space for small trucks, which is great. And there's some confusion there with, what kind of separates campers that are maybe doing something similar to another company, or maybe they're doing something completely different. And I'm sure they have some good points as to why their camper would be perfect for your rig. And I'm hoping to bring forward some of those talking points and some of those differentiators. So if you are in the market, which we all always are, maybe they can help you make a decision onto what rig you are looking for next or for your first rig. So that's exciting. So today will be the first in not a series, but just a long-term goal of mine is to spread awareness about these other camper manufacturer companies. Like I said, what differentiates them and how it might be good for what you're looking for out of a camper. So stay tuned to the second part for that. Super exciting. I'll start off today's podcast with a question from a listener I got in the DMs. And straight up, they said, "Hey, just reaching out, longtime follower. It's good to connect. I had a question because with winter coming, I'm wondering how to best winterize my tiny Bel Air camper." All right, that's a good question, and I've thought a lot about this as well. I have taken my rig to the snow a few times. I'm sure everybody out there has dreamed or has taken their rig to the snow at some point or in some colder temperatures. And because the Bel Air, the cowlings are so small and there's no internal water or anything, you don't really need to winterize them. But they were mostly concerned with moisture getting in and how to take care of that. So lately, what I've been running in my camper when I'm not using it is a little dehumidifier, and it has been amazing just to see how much water that thing can suck out of the air. So I think when you're in port, when you're not, out there on the road and you have shore power connection, a little dehumidifier will go a long way. So that's the first thing I would recommend. Secondly, if you can, a diesel heater. Why? A diesel heater is dry heat and it will suck moisture out of the air. That's it. So running a diesel heater keeps the moisture from building up, keeps condensation from building up, whereas a propane heater or a ceramic heater or a convection heater will essentially help maintain a moist atmosphere. And then when you pair that with condensation just from normal breathing, you can get some moisture buildup. And then another one is the moisture, the cold transfer from the outside to the inside. So if you have a metal camper, the outside skin acts as a heat sink or a cold sink, and it takes that coldness and it can transfer it through to the inside of the camper. If you have screws that go all the way through, or you have some sort of metal's a great conductor, some sort of metal part going from the outside inside, that can transfer cold air, dense air, and once it mixes with moisture, it can form condensation. So I guess, the solution would be a dehumidifier when you're in port, and then when you're out there living it up, I'd recommend a diesel heater to try to counteract some of that condensation. And then if you're in the process of building a camper, this is something to consider too, is the skin you want on the outside, like a fiberglass Phylon style skin is going to keep that cold air out because it won't act as a medium for the coldness of the air to transfer from the outside to the inside. So that's just my tips. I'm sure you guys got tips. If you have any other tips out there, feel free to shoot me a DM. I'd love to hear about them. we get a lot of questions, and I think I'm going to start trying to answer some of the questions opening up this podcast. It's a fun way to kind of start the podcast out and just get some knowledge out there right off the bat. So if you guys got questions, shoot me a DM, and we can put those into the next podcast episode. I think it'd be super fun and kind of keep the community knowledge share going, because where we're at in the campers game, I've been doing it for quite a few years now. I know some people have been doing it for a while, and when you're in it, it's less daunting. We understand it a little bit more, but I gotta take a look, step outside and think like, hey, if someone's brand new to this, if they just stumbled across the page, they want to get a camper, they don't know where to start, it's pretty daunting. There's so much to consider, and there's so many options, and it's like a different language almost. So if we can start nailing down some of those differentiators and just make people's kind of see clear how this all works, I think that would help a lot. And that's one of the pillars that this Instagram or this community is built upon, is like sharing knowledge and helping others. So we got to keep doing that through the podcast, through Instagram DMs, answering those questions, and eventually somehow through the website. We'll figure out that when we get there. Let's see, big news coming out of Northern Lite. Northern Lite recently announced they're going to relaunch the 610, the 610. This is straight off their website. The original Northern Lite 610 truck camper, considered a cult classic by truck camper aficionados, that's us, inspired our new entry for the half-ton camper market. Yes, there was a massive cult classic following around the 610, and it's great to see that they are re-inspired to introduce this again. All right, now back to the website. The redesigned Northern Lite 610 reflects everything that you have come to expect from a Northern Lite camper. Quality construction, all the comforts of home, and of course, our 2-piece fiberglass shell designed to keep you warm and dry no matter what the conditions are outside. The brand new Northern Lite 610 is designed to fit domestic half-ton trucks such as the F-150, GM 1500, and Chevy 1500. Then you can subscribe below and get news related to the launch of this rig. So at first glance, I was like, heck yeah, this is exciting. I feel like the industry is listening to, honestly, like what this community is putting out there. We're putting out these indicators that we want this. This is exactly what we want. And it's awesome to see companies like Northern Lite respond. Same thing with Capri with their Lone Star Mini. Palomino, I think, recently announced a smaller half-ton camper. We're still waiting on Lance to react to the news, but they'll get there eventually. And then in the meantime, you have just this massive segment that has taken over a big piece of the pie with like your Go Fast camper Oru designs, Tune Outdoors style, Topo Toppers style wedge, campers, kind of almost like remakes of Roman chariots, using modern materials and just simple toppers. But that's what the people want, and that's what the people need. And the nice thing about those is, they're lightweight. You don't need to do a whole lot to your truck, and you can chug them around on a Ranger or Tacoma. But back to the Northern Lite, I'm just looking at some features here. We got a Suburban cooktop, sink faucet, 12-volt range hood and fan, Norcold 12-volt compressor, fridge, that's great. Some nice Dometic windows, water heating system, fantastic fan, that's great. Fetchford cassette toilet, solar panels, some jacks, lithium battery compartment, heated plumbing compartment and storage. That's good for the Arctic colder weathers. You don't want those holding tanks to be frozen and break. That would be a huge bummer. Exterior shower, fresh and gray tanks, and 12-volt pump. So that's like the basic base model right there. And it looks like their target weight is around 1,500 pounds. So not quite there for the Tacoma. And I wonder if this will be available in just a shell, because this would be a killer shell. Who knows? 1,500 pounds is a lot of weight. My camper is 2,000 pounds, and I'm on a F250, and it's a lot. 1,500 pounds is a lot, and I think if these guys came out with a shell that came in around 900 pounds, it'd be a game changer, because essentially that's kind of what we want is shells, and build out the inside ourselves. That's what I'm seeing at least, and I'm a huge proponent of that because, with rinse kit, with portable camping stoves, this thing already has a portable toilet. Like, you can just literally throw those things in a shell and you're good to go. If that would keep the weight down, I think that'd be a huge bonus, and it would be easier for these guys. They wouldn't have to build out interiors every time. You could throw a Jackery with a solar panel on top and you'd be good to go. So it's great to see that Northern Lite is responding to the community. This camper does look super clean according to like the computer renditions. I love the 2-piece fiberglass clamshell design. That is just so proven and it's just so good. They have this kind of internal ratchet tie system, which I think is great. You don't need to... I threw like a proper camper tie down system on my truck a few weeks ago, and I had to drill holes in the truck bed, and it was quite sad. But seeing this kind of ratchet tie system looks really cool, so I'm excited still. It's not exactly... I think they're pretty close to the bullseye, but they didn't hit the bullseye. But I think it's pretty close. And this thing would look pretty badass on like a Tundra. I'm not sure Tundra. Let me just Google real quick. Tundra payload capacity. Okay, so just a super quick Google search says max payload of 1,900 pounds on the Tundra. That's just a quick Google search. I don't know if that's crew cab, single cab, long bed, whatever. But we'll just go with like... Okay, this is 1,500 to 1,900 pounds. So if you have the Tundra in the right configuration, I think like this Northern Lite would be super sick. If you can figure out if it'll work for your truck, and they didn't talk about price point. I'm guessing like all other new campers today, it's going to start in the $30,000 mark, which is a ton of money, but some people enjoy that. And if I could, I would for sure. But part of the thing that I like about small truck campers is the hunt for used campers and the deals and getting the one owned camper off of a grandma and grandpa that babied it, stored it indoors his whole life. That is just kind of like, to me, the pinnacle of a good find, a good deal. But if you have, some cash, or, you want something like this weekend, not this weekend, but you want something soon, or you just want to go order the camper, go pick it up. Yeah, I can see this as being a pretty cool option. So check it out. It's on their website, northern-lite.com, and you'll see right there the 610. There's a brochure. I might try to get that brochure and share with you some stuff. I'll fill it out later when I'm not recording an episode. So yeah, I just want to say thanks so much for being a part of the community, for following along, for listening to this podcast, for staying tuned to the show. This is my part-time kind of hobby, and with all hobbies, I do get kind of burned out from time to time, and I kind of experienced that for the past week or so. I just kind of felt really burned out, kind of directionless, didn't know really where I wanted to take it, what I wanted to do with it, and usually I'm like, I'm just gonna kind of call it for now, maybe pick it up later, and that usually lasts a couple days. Then something will inspire me, and I'll get back into it. Now I'm fired up, so that's just kind of how it goes with hobbies and passions. You have ebbs and flows. And I was definitely in the ebb state the past 2 weeks or so, not posting a whole lot, but I kind of got some new direction. I've been talking to some kind of people out there that have communities and getting some ideas from them, and looking forward. I feel like there's so much to do, but then when I look back, I think about how far we've come with this community and how big it's grown, and just how cool it is, and how many stories there are within that community, and adventures and backyard builders. And like I've said before, that's the goal of this podcast, is to share those stories, to share those experiences, as well as to bring on information about new campers and new products that I think the community would really benefit from. So a quick little funny story, and this is just me kind of like trying to bring this whole community down to the personal level. It's super easy to see on the Instagram, like good rigs, people out there living the life, just having the most epic weekend. The campers perfectly positioned out in the meadows, and there's surfboards or kayaks or mountain bikes, and the dog, and the campfire and the stars, and you're just like, dang, dude, I'm stuck at my office or something. I can't get out there. But I got a funny story that will kind of hopefully just humble me for sure, and maybe just help you guys realize that it's, aside from Instagram versus reality. So If you followed along, you'll know that like a month ago, I was going to go down south for a baby shower. Loaded up the truck camper, got about 2 hours outside of Santa Cruz, and the clutch master cylinder went out. Had to get the thing towed back to Santa Cruz, had to load up the Prius and leave the next morning at like 6 a.m. to get down to this baby shower in time. And we made it down there, it was all good. But I definitely learned a lesson in that. And the lesson was reiterated. So like last weekend I had 2 days off, and I wanted just to hit a quick trip down to Big Sur. One of my favorite places. Me and the missus were going to head down there. So once again, load up the camper. It was already pretty much loaded from the last attempt. And we finally get going. And we're about 40 minutes outside of town. And my truck starts making a weird vibrating noise at like 60 to 70 miles per hour. It's a diesel. It's got the 7.3. And yes, the engines are bulletproof. But regardless, it was just vibrating, and I was not getting a good feeling from it. As I pressed the gas to like 73, 74 miles an hour, the vibrating would increase and then kind of stop. And then if I came to a stop, like I pulled off on an off-ramp and just kind of idled for a second, it vibrated for a little bit and then kind of went away. So, Big Sur is like single roads, no reception. And, we had the thought of the breakdown recently in our minds, and I just did not want to experience that again. So it was, to my great dismay, I decided, you know what, let's just turn around. We'll just like, I don't want to get stuck down there. I need to figure out what's up with this truck. This truck is a great truck, but it has sat for a bit while I was deployed, and I've gone through it, but maybe I haven't gone through enough. And I was like, let's just get home. Let's just like not do this right now. Let's just turn it around. So we end up turning around, and I was super bummed because I had just really wanted to get down there ever since I got back from my deployment and just like camp and just like wake up without reception and just like wake up somewhere beautiful. Not to say that where I live isn't beautiful, but just you're in a different mindset when you're kind of on the mission of adventuring. So I turned around and I'm like super bummed, but it's okay. It's better to be safe than sorry. If it was just me, I probably would have kept going, but with the dog, with the lady, it was just not it. I just didn't want a 2.0 of the first trip where we had to get towed, and it was just a huge mission. So turn around and I'm like moping and I'm like sad and just like negative and just like not really talking a whole lot because I really wanted to go down there. And I should have just like snapped out of it, but everything was great. I was pulling into the driveway. And as I pull into the driveway, I'm just like, oh, finally I'm home. I can just like turn off the truck and just like go inside and be sad inside. I literally lost my like focus for a split second, took the corner coming into my driveway by like a fraction of an inch too much, and the camper jack snagged our beautiful 2000 Ford Ranger, and the jack dented the Ford Ranger just above the bumper, and even worse, it like twisted and tore part of the camper corner open. And I couldn't believe it. I just sat there like, I just felt so dumb. It wasn't that bad, but I like twisted this camper mount and it caused some damage. I gotta go and like look at how bad it is, but the camper was pristine, and then I went on to do this. So yeah, I was extremely bummed, and that kind of set off like my like kind of 1 week of just like taking a break from the whole camping Instagram thing, because I was just kind of super bummed. I mean, I just felt dumb. I felt like an idiot. I was like, I have all these followers. I like have this community I built, and I just did something that was like so amateur. I couldn't believe it. I lost my focus for literally a split second. As I realized I was taking the corner too tight, as I realized the doom that was about to happen, it like was a split second in my brain, like, oh no, the camper jack. And as I was like going through that in my mind, it was like boom, and the Ford Ranger literally jumped forward. Like, luckily I was only going less than 5 miles an hour, but all the momentum, like 2,000 pound camper, 7,000 pound vehicle, doesn't matter how fast you're going. If you're going 1 mile an hour, all that momentum is still going to cause damage. And that camper jack is like a fulcrum, the bottom of the jack hit, so of course the top had all that inertia behind it, and it tweaked it a good 20 degrees off straight down. and split open the corner a little bit. It's definitely not detrimental, and it's definitely within my realm to repair. But yeah, that was the reality I was facing. And meanwhile, I was getting photos of people actually on cool adventures, camping, doing their thing. And I was like, dude, I'm an idiot. This is dumb. I'm dumb. I'm sad. And I just totally ruined a perfectly good camper. I share this story because I want you guys just to know that, we're all people. Accidents happen. I called my buddy like a few hours later, and I was like, you'll never believe what happened, blah, blah, blah. He's like, dude, we all have cool stuff, but that's it. It's just stuff. At the end of the day, it's stuff, and it can be repaired and replaced if it needs to be, but don't let it get you down. So that was one lesson I learned, is like, yes, we have the coolest of campers, but we have this awesome stuff, but don't lose sight it's just stuff. And like, as long as no one got hurt, and that's always the main thing. Secondly, focus on the good stuff. So I think it was unwise of me to not put my vehicle through proper like power trials before getting it with the camper and going camping. I should have done some more maintenance, and I called a few people, and I'm pretty sure it's the fuel filter. I haven't replaced the fuel filter in like a year and a half, and the truck's been sitting, so I'm hoping that's it. I checked U-joints, I checked nuts and bolts, everything seems tight. Computer's good, injection's good, so I'm thinking it's got to be the fuel filter. But what I focused on, I should have been focusing on the mission, which was to get down there and be camping with my wife and the dog and enjoy that space. But I was focused on the act of getting down there more than like the point of getting down there. Had I focused on the act of getting down there, I probably would have just thrown the tent in our little Prius and just had been done with it. But instead I was focusing on maybe the wrong thing given that circumstance. So, right, we only had one night. It was about a 2-hour drive there and back. We didn't leave till the afternoon, so our time was definitely limited. And I didn't have the luxury of time to troubleshoot issues. So for me, that's a reminder. That's like a new law I'm going to put into my like well-being, is just focus on kind of the good stuff, or focus on the goal. And most of the times the goal is to take the camper and just have a good time and like kind of just wander and go around. But sometimes the goal is like, hey, I just want to get down there for the night. We're just going to camp. I want to take the X factor out, and maybe we'll take the reliable car instead of like the fun, cool car. So I've kind of tried to remember that and embody that, and maybe that will help, someone out there who's faced with a decision of like what car to take. I just want to go camping for the night or two. I don't want to risk it. And that's just with me, vintage cars. I mean, yes, a newer truck this problem wouldn't be in existence. However, newer trucks are out of my price range, and I prefer to tinker on the old stuff. Less so now that my time is, with a full-time job, being in the military, my free time is more valuable, and I am in a position to maybe consider getting something more dependent, quote unquote, more reliable, quote unquote. However, I just enjoy the aesthetic and the style of like older vintage stuff. So to mitigate, this from happening again, it's just going to be focusing on the goal and keeping time constraints in the foreground as I identify the goal and pursue it, without having the luxury of like a newer vehicle, which newer vehicles also have their issues too. So the master cylinder going out a month ago, I couldn't have predicted that. There's nothing I could have really done except for replace it ahead of time, preventative maintenance. And then this vibration I felt the vibration about a month ago, but I didn't think much of it. I thought maybe I don't know. I just was like, whatever. So now I got to address this. New fuel filter arrived today. I'll throw that in there, and I'm going to take it for a test run up and down the coast, a power trial prior to getting it involved in another camping excursion, just to build my confidence, build my wife's confidence up in it. And keeping in mind that if our goal is just to go camping for the night or even 2 nights, just kind of quickly, where we don't want an we don't have the luxury of time, then maybe we'll take a different vehicle until we can get to that point of affording a quote unquote new, more reliable truck, which I don't know. I don't even know what that means, but that's where I'm at with that. So I wanted to share that story. I thought it was kind of cool. Hopefully get some insight from it. Well, the story wasn't cool, but what I learned from it was cool. So that's kind of the scar from that. And hopefully, we've taken this rig twice now. It hasn't worked out. Hopefully 3rd time's a charm. And something's going to be on the books for that in the near future, which I'm excited to go on. But until then, I will be at home dreaming and scheming of when and where that next adventure is. So, fun little insight. Okay. All right, right now we got Aiden Bradley on the line from Wasatch Overland. And Aiden, thanks so much for taking the time. I'm
Yep.
stoked we could connect.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure. So Aiden right now, he's working in the office and, it's a busy day. I'm stoked we could make some time to connect. And Aiden, I know that your company was featured recently on our Instagram for the Tufport shells,
Yeah,
and we'll get into that in a little bit. But why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and where you're from and kind of how you got into the camping space?
sure. So, growing up in England, one of the big things that we used to do was caravanning, we call it over there. So, it's kind of like a de-glorified Airstream. If ever you've seen English caravans or heard Jeremy Clarkson talking about them, that was how we spent our summers. And we would go away for 6 to 8 weeks every summer down through France, Spain, all through Europe. And then any kind of spring break, fall break, we were going away in the caravan. So spent a lot of time kind of with that lifestyle. Then grew up, didn't travel that much like that anymore. Moved out to America back in 2004. Started in Southern California, met my wife, had a child, moved to Oregon. Kind of didn't like the town we were in too much in Oregon and made some great friends from Utah while we were there, and then moved out to Utah. Ended up working in a programming job, but always kind of outside, building my own vehicles from scratch, messing around with old Jeeps. And during that time period, when I was working on Jeeps, I had a young guy come up and we got hanging out, and turned out he was working on a Jeep. And that's actually now my business partner, Chad. So roll forward to sort of middle of 2019, a buddy of mine reached out and said, "Hey, we should build a van. There's this whole thing called van life." And I was like, "Sure." So I bought a van. We worked on it on the driveway a little bit. And then the whole COVID thing happened. And Chad, who wasn't my business partner then, but he was away, and then he came back. We started Wasatch Overland at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. And it just went from building vans and building bumpers and roof racks and all kinds of fabrication. We would kind of take on any work at the beginning, almost anything that we could. And it was on the driveway. And then it started getting, people would come to us for a full van build, and we soon realized we needed a shop. So we got one shop, and then within that first year, we were up to 4 shops because the demand was so high. And we'd started a partnership with Tufport up in British Columbia, and they were doing high tops, and they still supply our high tops, which is, for someone listening that doesn't know, it's a way of converting a Ford Econoline or a Chevy Express into a tall enough van that you can stand in. So it's a rooftop that we cut the roof out of the van, we put a fiberglass top on, and you can stand up. And then we can do a simple high top conversion in a couple of hours. But then we found that most clients wanted interiors and windows and fans. And so then we started increasing our team so that now we've got a full-time electrician, full-time upholsterer. We've got 2 CNCs. We've got a fabricator. So it just kind of organically expanded the way that we didn't ever imagine it to be like this. It just happened organically, which feels so nice. It was not like we had, $1 million and went and started a van building business. It's not what it started as. It started as me and my buddy on a driveway, putzing around in an Econoline, and it just evolved into what it is now.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that is honestly like two things come to mind, right? One is the fact that most businesses, start out in the driveway or in the garage, and you were able to kind of do that.
Yeah.
And then two, being from England, in some ways it's kind of the American dream, like starting your own thing, and it just took off. So that's super cool. I mean, yeah, hats off to you guys. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pretty long road, but When I was working in the programming industry, well, it was actually the tech ed industry. I was working as a programmer and I put in my 8 hours, and then you'd get your company pizza party appreciation thing. And they're like, you've done a great job. And you're like, okay, but what did I actually do? Like, I wrote some code, but who benefited from that? Like, I never saw a smile. I never got like the gratification. Whereas now, every day we're supplying people with their dream van or if they're going to build it themselves and we've just add a high top, we have clients crying with happiness and grinning from ear to ear, or they turn up with a truck and we put a camper on it. And they're like, now we can start our adventure. And they're so grateful. We just see smiles, the coolest clients, and then the team that we've assembled, that's where I think our value as a company is. Like, I could sit here and tell you how cool our product is all day long, but the fact that the guys and girl that we have working for us, without those, we wouldn't be the company we are. They are the complete backbone. I'm just the conductor and they're the orchestra.
Oh, that's a good analogy. Yeah, that's so cool, and I'm sure, what I like about this community that we've made is the stories you hear from the rigs, like the stories that come with the rigs.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have a front row seat to that with seeing the actual rig roll off the lot or roll off the warehouse, and they come back a few weeks later. Oh man, we took this thing up to the snow and then down to Mexico. Like it was, I'm sure you got stories upon stories from clients. That's got to bring some fulfillment.
Oh, it's incredible. Like, honestly, it's a daily thing where I'll get text messages from clients and it's just a photograph. And I often upload those to our Instagram where it's just like the client won't even say anything. They just know that I like the content and I love to see the fact that they're using that stuff. And we have some clients that are just like gung ho every single weekend. All of a sudden my phone will be blowing up and there'll be like 50 photographs of them. They're just so stoked with it themselves that they want to be able to share that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome to be able to have that relationship with the clients. They're not just numbers and paychecks. I remember the name of every single client we've ever had. And we just yesterday had a client come in who wanted to book in for a bill, and we did her high top beginning of 2021. And she just came by and she's like, all right, guys, I want you to do a full interior for me. And her name's Molly, and it was just super cool to see her after 2 years. Haven't spoken to her, and she's just super stoked. And yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, incredible. So when you were starting this driveway kind of company, I'm sure you assembled some skills like how to weld, how to do some metal sheet work, basic stuff like that, or how do you kind of what kind of skill table?
Yeah, so I'd been building. Well, started like a lot of people on a Volkswagen Beetle 12 years ago, and then kind of got bored of cars that were already half built. So I started building my own chassis. And so I built a low cost 7, and I built a couple of T-buckets. I built this weird amalgamation of an International Harvester's C5 body and put it on a Dodge Power Wagon chassis. And so, I started off with a Harbor Freight flux core welder, and that was fine for a while. And then ended up getting into MIG. And so did a lot of metal fabrication. And again, just all driveway stuff. I mean, it never looked pretty, but none of it's fallen apart yet. The one skill I didn't really have was woodwork. And that's where Chad, my business partner, he came in. I said, want some cabinets built? Do you want to build a cabinet for me for this van? And so he bought the wood, and I would, at the time, we used to build the interiors out of a structural steel kind of skeleton that was skinned with wood. Okay. So that's kind of the first 2 or 3 vans we probably did that way. And then, I've got an understanding of electronics, being able to make circuits work for, to build a car from scratch. You need to be able to have some electrical skills, just self-taught type stuff. And as the business started evolving, then reached out to a guy who's been a friend of mine for many years, who worked as a police car upfitter. So he would wire police cars and ambulances, and his attention to detail and wiring was just like, I mean, it's art almost. So
Yeah.
I said, Dave, you need to come and do some wiring in a van for me. And he started just before Thanksgiving a couple of years ago, and he's here every day of the week, and he's our now team lead for electrical and external type stuff. And then, yeah, I'm pretty big into like vintage Volvos. And so I knew a guy called Ryan, and Ryan worked at a backpack sewing company, and I needed some cushions making. And I was like, hey, you know how to sew a backpack. You want to make me a cushion? And before he knew it, we'd like snagged him, and he's our full-time upholsterer and helps out with metal fabrication because he also goes to school for welding. So we've taken over. So he does all of our TIG, all of our aluminum TIG, and all of MIG welding. So any fabricating, he does all of that now. And then we have Jo, who's pretty new to the team, but she comes to us from a manufacturing background and architecture. So she's fully like into CNC, attention to detail. She helps build cabinets. Yeah, so pretty small team for the core of it. We do have other people that work on weekends and kind of like night shift and that kind of stuff. But the main core of the team that works on the van builds, they're our guys, they're 100% dedicated, and we love them all. It's all cliche, it's family. We all mountain bike together on a weekend, and we try and, we buy lunches every day for the entire team. So every day is catered. We go, because an Overland Expo, or like, we take them to the Overland Expo and look after them and help.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, help out everyone as much as we can. If they need help, we help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of a real nice culture. It's not like, I don't feel like I'm going to work every day. I'm going to hang out with my buddies and build vans. It's kind of cool.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I want to ask about how you got in touch with Tufport, for like how you came across them, and what kind of advantages do you see in the material? And then I want to talk about kind of, you mentioned them for use on your vans, which I'm seeing on your website right now. But I definitely want to dive into kind of the slide-in camper options you have for small trucks and how that's fun. But if you want to talk a little bit about Tufport and their materials and kind of what makes it superior, and we can roll into some more questions from that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually had when we were early days building vans, we had a client reach out and inquire about us putting a high top, which is the fiberglass roof on a van. And so we were only aware of one company at the time. We reached out to that company, and they were kind of hard to get a hold of. Then eventually they sent through a price list that was pretty archaic. And then their website looked like it had been designed in like 1984. And then we were like, okay, we want to buy a high top from you. And they're like, okay, you need to mail us a check. And at that point, I'm like, this is terrible. And so I reached back out to the client, and I was like, this is kind of hard work trying to get a hold of this company. And they mentioned Tufport up in Canada, who wasn't on my radar. And so I called up Tufport. I immediately got the phone was answered immediately by Tyler. And I was like, introduced ourselves, what we do. And he was like, sure, I'll sell you a couple of high tops, a retail price. And two of them came down. It was probably a month later. And I think I posted them up on Instagram or on Facebook. And within, a few moments, the two high tops had disappeared, sold. And so I reached back out to him, and I'm like, well, how many more can I order? And he's like, oh, we've sold those two already? I said, yeah. So I ordered 8, and then sold those within a couple of weeks, and then ordered 12 and sold those within a month. And it was at that point that they were like, okay, you're kind of good for us. And they were definitely good for us. And so we went up to British Columbia, which was super cool. It was our first trip up to Canada. We got to go mountain biking in Squamish and Whistler. We got to meet the guys at the fort, see the high tops. And then Also, at the corner of our eye at the time, we saw these truck slide-ins, which we'll circle back to. Anyway, we ended up becoming their authorized US installer for their high tops. And now we pretty much do 12 a month installations, which is about 3 a week. So it, on top of the van builds and everything else that we do, it's kind of nice that we're doing that. And I would say only about 10% of our clients are local, which is mind blowing to me that, I'll sell a high top to someone from Florida and they'll drive over, takes them 3 days to get here, takes us 3 hours to put a top on their van, and they'll drive back for 3 days. And, we're super fortunate that the product itself, absolutely phenomenal, super lightweight fiberglass, very, very strong. I've done actually 2 insurance cases where trees have fallen on them and they've cracked, but never actually fully broken through. And so, yeah, it's just a phenomenal product and a really, really great company. It's a family company, 3rd generation, working there right now. Really, really get on well with the guys. And we actually go up there every 3 months now, hang out with them, see what's new. It's really good for us just to kind of get away. And also we get to go mountain biking in Squamish, which is always a bonus. And then further along the line, we started talking about their T-Series truck slide-ins. And they do a lot of those. They sell them for medical units. And they have a unit called the FIST unit, which is a seedling transportation. And then they have their adventure units, which is more akin to what we do as Wasatch Overland. And so we kind of put the word out to them, if ever you want a US distributor, we'd be more than happy to do that for you. And then, we wrote up the contracts and made sure that we were all happy with everything. And then we became the US distributor for the truck slide-ins. It's been pretty interesting because it's a well-developed product. So we haven't really gone in and said, hey, this needs to be changed at all. We've just kind of brought our little bit of flair to it because we can build out the interior with a few more capabilities than what they can. So they'll often have a client that says, hey, I'd love a truck slide in for my F-150 and I want a bed in it. And they'll immediately just say, hey, go to Wasatch Overland because they have the capabilities of doing that for you. So it's been really, really good. And we do, we kind of limit ourselves on how many of those we do because they take up a lot of real estate actually in the shops here. And then they take time for us to obviously put windows and fans and we insulate them and wear them and do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we crank through them definitely. And again, when it comes to the product itself, they're super lightweight. The one thing that really intrigued us was, and I can't go too deep into it, but there's obviously a lot of other truck camper products out there and that, but these things are really waterproof. I can guarantee that very, very waterproof.
That's amazing.
Yeah, definitely waterproof where other companies, various different manufacturing styles. And I see there's a market for us all, honestly, but some definitely not as waterproof as the Tufports.
So let's talk. That's incredible. I mean, so for these truck campers, are they one piece of fiberglass construction, or is it clamshell like a Northern Lite or like a Bigfoot?
Yeah, so it's not like either of those, which is kind of interesting. Depending on the model, it's pretty much a 2-piece, well, I guess 3-piece construction. You've got the main body, the overcab, and then the box liner is the main 3 pieces that go into it. Once all of those are shot and made, then they go into another great big mold where it's all sealed and fiberglass together into one big piece. So it is made in various molds, but then they get put into a jig and then they get shot again from the inside so that it ends up being one cohesive part. And you can see there are lines on the outside where the various pieces have gone together, but it's pretty darn difficult to see the way it goes together. In terms of actual manufacturing process, it would be almost impossible to make a one piece, a true one piece.
Yeah.
At that point, you get into vacuum molding, which is for this market, it's cost prohibitive, honestly. The machines and the setup. And the reason we know that is because we've priced it out. To do a one piece, it's almost impossible when you think about a door structure that goes into it, the wooden reinforcement that goes into it, and then the variations as well. Full size truck, mid size truck, and then two sizes for each of those.
Yeah.
Then even down to like, let's look at the smallest model, the T55. They have one version that goes in a Tacoma, but if you want to put it in a Ford Ranger, the Ford Ranger's got taller rails, so it needs to have modifications done to the box liner for that. And then you put it in, let's say a full size, put it in a 2004 Tundra. Well, the 2004 Tundra's got these weird little bits that need to be adjusted. So yeah, it's definitely not one size fits all, which is why we don't keep inventory of them. Everyone is made to order.
I see.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. And I see a lot of companies, or a couple companies in mind, Capri mostly making the Lone Star model, which is essentially a shell. It's a generic size for full size trucks.
Yeah.
Because there's so many variables with like the bed rails, the cab over height, etc. So I could see how that would be like an inhibitor, especially for that vacuum sealed one piece unit.
Yeah. Yeah. Because at that point, it would need to be one mold per truck almost. Whereas right now, 6.5 foot F-150 would pretty much fit on a 6.5 foot Chevy equivalent. But if you came along and had a 6.5 foot Tundra, that's when it gets different. Or if you've got a hybrid F-150, that's a little bit different as well, because now there's a battery right underneath the back of the cab, underneath the truck bed. So that they've all got little nuances, And I've got a kind of cheat sheet because we get phone calls all the time. Like, can you install it on this? I'm like, yes, but we'll need to add an extra 3/4 of an inch because you've got a little shark fin antenna on your roof.
Yeah.
Then,
Yeah.
that changes everything around,
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of variables there. Let's talk about weight, and let's talk about offerings. So
Sure.
the number one, question people probably ask you is, will this fit a Tacoma?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us have Tacomas. So what's your answer to that? And what kind of weight are we looking at for like a Tacoma style? Not specifically, single cab, double cab, crew cab, whatever.
Yeah.
But just generically, what do you think about that?
So Tacoma, there's actually two models that fit a Toyota Tacoma from first gen all the way up to the newest. Our shop van here has got a T55 model. Yeah, so the shop truck. So there are two models available for the Tacoma. There's the T59 and the T55. The T55 being the smaller, a 55-inch interior height, and then the interior width on that is 60 inches. That comes in at under 500 pounds. That's 475 pounds. And we've sat one of those on first gen Tacomas all the way up to not the new Tacoma, but the newest Tacoma that is available.
Awesome. So 500 pounds.
Yeah.
You got yourself a durable, waterproof truck camper. That's pretty incredible.
So that's what we have on our shop Tacoma. The next size up is a T59. That's 59 inches internal height, 72 inches in width, which is super nice because you can sleep. Most people can sleep widthways, 72 being 6 feet. That one, it is also available in different lengths. So that's kind of tailored. If you want an 81-inch long, then it's possible to have it made that length. And they come in just over 500 pounds, 550 pounds.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that particular model, the T55 and the T59, are our most popular because they sit on the majority of mid-size trucks. There's pretty much nothing that they won't fit on. Nissan Frontiers. Yeah, the most common one is the Ranger and Tacoma.
And I see on your website right now for the T55, it starts around 8,650.
Yeah.
That's still accurate?
Yep. Yeah, all pricing on the website is actually 100% accurate. So the T55, actually, that one, because the length doesn't change on it, that is 8,600. And that's actually that photograph that you're looking at. That's our shop truck.
Okay, the four-door for
Yeah.
those listening, it's a four-door Tacoma with a 6-foot bed. Looks to be kind of the newest gen Tacoma they make.
Yeah. And then the T59, that is from $9,800 US. And basically, every time you add a foot to it, add a little bit extra in length, it adds $200. So if you wanted the 6-foot version, then it comes at $10,000. But the nice thing about that is you can sleep widthways.
Awesome. Yeah, that's incredible. We'll stick on pricing. I got to, so 10, we'll call it 10,000 ish.
Yeah.
And that hits a lot of entry points for a lot of campers. I think that's kind of what Go Fast kind of coming around, Topo, wedge style campers. So you're hitting a very good market segment with that price point.
Yeah.
What kind of customer would choose this over, say, a wedge style camper or a different style camper? Or I guess, what is your ideal customer? What are they
Oh,
into? Where do they live?
yeah. I don't think it's necessarily where they live. The one thing that they're going to get bonus wise with one of these over another manufacturer is insulative properties and waterproof properties, pure durability. Now, something like that T59, you cannot stand up in it. And a wedge style camper, you might not always want to stand up in it, but you could if you opened it up, right? But as soon as you're
Yeah.
opening it up, you're also losing a lot of that insulative quality, and also you're opening it up to the elements. So what we've found is mountain bikers absolutely love these rigs because you can put a dirty, dirty bike in the back with a dirty dog and you can sleep back there. You get home and you can just hose pipe this whole thing out and it's 100% waterproof. As waterproof as it is on the outside, it is on the inside. And so it'll return to brand new almost instantly with a hose pipe. Whereas you don't have to worry about canvas sides flapping around in the wind and that kind of a deal. So, yeah, there's a lot of mountain bikers who bought them from us, a lot of hunters who want to just basically have some kind of a safety tent that they can go out in that, again, is completely enclosed from the elements. Makes it a lot easier to insulate these things. And if you put some kind of a heater in there, some heat source, that heat is not going to be escaping through canvas sides. Durability, you don't have to worry about extruded aluminum or anything like that. These things, if ever you look on Tufport's website and kind of go into their deep cuts on their website, you'll see photographs of these that were medical units and someone's rolled it down a hill and it's basically crushed the slide in, but not beyond repair, which is insane. I'm actually seeing the cab of the truck because it's crushed the slide in.
Yeah, I think I saw that photo.
Yeah.
It looked like someone with basic fiberglass could pretty much repair it.
Yeah.
Get the basic skills or a Home Depot near you or something.
Yeah. And, you take it back to Tufport and they actually cut that section out and mold a new piece into it. So, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Uh,
They're super cool units.
yeah,
uh,
they're really incredible.
and they look like they were designed for the purpose as opposed to using other product that has been modified into something. So, seen a huge over the last 3 years, various companies doing this kind of pre-molded. It's like inch and a quarter thick fiberglass that's already reinforced and insulated. And then you have these like corner brackets that you put in and then you glue them into place, like extruded aluminum. And so you end up with a very angular kind of slide in that kind of looks like old school Legos kind of put together. And I can definitely see a benefit to it because it makes building out the inside super easy because you've got vertical walls and a flat roof and you don't have to worry about compounding corners and weird radiuses. But it also looks like someone's built an old school Lego house and put it on the back of a truck, as opposed to these that have got, a bunch of nice curves and aerodynamic.
Yeah, I'm looking at they look incredible. And I think for like a skier, snowboarder that wants the installation, a mountain biker, it makes perfect sense. So
Yeah.
how do you guys handle financing at all? How are people kind of paying for these build outs and these campers? Is it owner financing or consumer, like I'd come to you with my financing plan, or do you guys have any relationships with that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We've got actually two options available. We do our own like in-house layaway kind of option. It's kind of the unofficial way of doing it. Normally, to get one of these campers on, we take a 30% deposit and then the balance is paid on the day of installation. Now, if you were like, oh, I can't, can you do financing? I would write up an invoice and you would pay it off fully at your own rates without any interest, pay off $100 a month for the next 2 years if you want. And once it's fully paid off, then I'll order it up into production and put it on for you. Now, if you're in a rush and you want to get it going quicker, then we do partner with Lightstream, which is a third party company. And we have the link on the website, but we are hands off from that point. We tell them, hey, your product is going to be X amount of dollars. They would then go through Lightstream, apply for that. And then Lightstream sends us the money. Then we get it ordered up and built. And it's between you and Lightstream at that point to figure out the interest rates and all that kind of stuff. So almost all clients will, because we're booked out quite a way on these, like about February now, I think. And we're recording this in October. So about 4 months booked out. Let's say you're going to get a T59, cost $10,000. Let's say $12,000 with all the options, the fan, the windows. We would take, what is that, $4,000. And then that puts it at least into production. So that goes into the production queue. And then you've got, 4 or 5 months to get the rest of the plans together, because I'm not going to be hounding you for that until the day of installation.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good program. I dig it. And I've used Lightstream in the past. They are a good tool if you need it. They're kind of different than a normal bank. So I've had a positive experience working with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've sold a couple of entire van builds to clients that have used Lightstream. But for these slide-ins, it seems like, honestly, there's a lot of money in recreation. Whether you're a mountain biker riding an $8,000 bike, or whether you go out hunting or quad biking, whatever it may be, recreation has money. That's how people want to spend it. And it wasn't me looking at various industries that I want to get into and say, hey, where do people spend money? It just happened that way organically. And people who want these slide-ins, the price point that we're hitting, even with a full interior, there are a lot of wealthy people out there that pay for this stuff, I just pay for it.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. 2 more questions. One is, how do you secure the camper to the truck bed? Because it looks like there's no external security or securing,
Yeah, correct.
like eye brackets or eye holes. So do that.
No, so it actually bolts directly through the slide-in, through the truck bed, and then through the truck bed rails. So it mounts directly onto the truck bed. The only variable is if a client particularly wants mounted to the chassis, we can do chassis mount, where the bolts go all the way through the truck, but through the slide-in, through the truck bed, and then bolt onto galvanized brackets that we bolt onto the chassis. And then with the Tacomas already have a truck bed bolted in with 4 bolts that are kind of a weird M12 by 1.25 metric bolt. We actually use extended versions of that bolt. We pull out the factory bolts and then bolt through the slide-in into the existing threads inside of the bed of the truck.
Okay. So nice and secure, looks clean,
Yep.
nothing to snag on the side.
Yep, super secure. If it's not a Tacoma, then the bolts we use are always lag bolts. So they're rounded on the inside, galvanized. There's always 2 at the rear, usually 2 at the front, not always dead centered, because there's usually a fuel tank. So they're usually off centered a little bit. And then, as I did mention earlier, there's that new hybrid F-150 that's got a battery box under there. We can just do 1 through the front, and that is still totally secure.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, for that lightweight capability, you don't need a bulletproof tie down system. That should handle it perfectly well. I guess 2 more questions.
Yeah.
One is, do you guys offer like a roof rack for these things, like for surfboards or kayaks or stand-up paddleboards? Because I didn't see any photos. I'm just curious, and I'm sure our listeners might be curious.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two options there. One is a factory option, which is their, I would say, high usage. They kind of market it as kind of a commercial roof rack. So people put ladders up. The truth is, it's got a roller on the back, so it makes loading of kayaks super easy. That's installed at the factory. It is steel powder coated white with a roller on the back. That's a $980 option. Or what it seems to be more popular is we'll install like Yakima or Thule artificial roof rails on the top so that you can put on like the Yakima landing pads with your own kind of mounting system. The other thing is we can put L-track on the top and install one-up bike racks directly through the roofs. I mean, these things are so versatile that, yeah, mounting stuff on the roof is not a problem at all.
Awesome. That's good because, our community is obviously adventurers with
Yeah,
kayak, paddleboarding, or mountain biking, or surfing, whatever it may be, snowboarding even. So that's always a key takeaway. And then
yeah,
my last question is, I'm seeing, some of the bigger ones like the T76, even the smaller ones like the T55, they have a tiny overhead cab space,
yeah.
more like a cubby, it kind of appears to be. Are there any plans from Tufport to make more of a full-on cab over style camper? I'm just curious.
Not that I can talk about.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah,
I just think I opened up this podcast with talking about Northern Lite coming out with this 610 redo, and essentially how I think, I don't know if you're familiar with the 610. It's like the short bed Tacoma fitting is two-piece fiberglass
uh-huh.
clamshell camper. Coming in at 1,500 pounds, coming in fully built out, looks a little heavy, looks a little bulky, and I
Yeah,
believe that there's a huge space there for like a fiberglass for like this, like a cab over thing, but more like just shell. So I was just curious.
so I would.
We'll have to
You go
soon.
on to Tufport's website, and if you look under their truck slide-ins page, you'll see something called the Overlander. And it says arriving soon, the ultimate ultralight 4x4 camper. I would say arriving.
I think we'll just stay tuned for info.
Yeah, just put your name down. There's a link there on their website where you can get more information about it. But definitely, they have some information about their ultralight 4x4 camper arriving soon on their website.
Awesome, Aiden. Well, thanks so much for taking the time. You answered some of my questions, which I'm sure listeners will have,
Yeah.
and that I think you're opening up people's eyes to a whole new kind of concept for what they could have for their truck camper. If they want more info, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys out there in Utah?
So easiest way is give us a call, 801-899-7840. If you don't really feel like talking to a real person and you just want to follow us on social media, then Wasatch_Overland is the Instagram. That's where we post pretty much every single day. And then also, if you want to we don't keep the website as up to date as we should be because we're in the shop actually building stuff, not designing websites. So go back to our Instagram and look at all the cool stuff that we've done and examples of units that we've installed on other clients' vans or trucks, and find a way to reach out to us. We're 100% committed to answering every single client question or phone call. And that's something we pride ourselves on. From those early days where we couldn't get a hold of a company and had to send in a check, that's not how we work. We answer everything every time.
That's great. That's what it's all about. The person and the phone and connecting with the community and developing it
Absolutely.
further. So thanks so much for the time. It was awesome to hear about what you guys got going on, your story, and I'm looking forward to what's coming next year. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be a real interesting year. I'm excited.
Me too. All right, Aiden, thanks so
All right.
much.
Thank you.